Hi and welcome to part 3 of this video lesson about tapping. So far have we done exclusively exercises that stayed on one string only. We've been doing it on different strings, but every exercise have been on one string only. But this time we're gonna make it a little more interesting by adding string shifts into the ideas that we already know. And that simply means adding more strings. Playing over more strings than just one. I will give you a quick example, something like this. Something like that. If broken down to its purest or most basic level, string shifts can be done in two ways. You either shift string or add every time you go to a new string, you do it with your fretting hand. Or the other way is you're doing with your tapping finger. And that can of course be millions of variations of that and different fingerings and going up and down, but you're always doing it either with your left hand or a fretting hand or with your right hand. And in this video we're gonna look at both ways. I will also let you rely a little more on the tablature shown in the video or the booklet. And the reason for this is just so we can add a little more speed, and that for the reason of being able to ram more exercises into every video, more information basically in given time. So if you think it moves too fast, just pause the video, rewind, take the booklet, look at the tablature, take your time. It's not a speed contest, it's about getting new ideas into your playing. Example 1. This will be shifting strings with a fretting hand. And it will be going down in pitch. And for that we're going to use a pattern that we used several times before. If you remember the 12th tap, pull that off to the 5th fret, hammer down on the 7th fret. That one. What we're going to do different now is adding the 7th fret hammer on the new string. So we're going to play two notes on the high E and then the third note on the 7th fret of the B string, like this. And then we get a pattern like this. And one thing that I noticed really helped my legato tapping playing a lot actually is that every time I'm doing the hammer on with my ring finger, do I slightly remove the pressure from my index finger. So it just stays on the string, but it's muted. Instead of a fretted note, like that, it's a muted string. I'm gonna do that a lot more than I would, just so you can see what I'm doing. Like this. You see, I'm lifting the finger all the time. I'm hammering down with my ring finger. And the reason for this is that you get more strength in your finger to do the hammer on. And it also makes it easier to make it quiet since the E string will be muted. Example 2 would also be built by a pattern that we used several times before. And that pattern this time is the 12, 7, 5 pattern, this pattern. So example 2 will be shifting strings with a tapping finger going down in pitch. So we have this pattern first, and then from there we do a new tap on the B string. So we get high E, B, and we get this pattern. Exercise 3 will be expanding on example 1 and take that pattern and move it over more strings going down in pitch. So the pattern we have from exercise 1 is this. And then we do the same thing on the B string down to the G string. The same thing from there down to the D string. The same thing there, down to the A string. And then we get a pattern that is. And then the next step would be take exercise 2 and add that over more strings. So the pattern we already know is. And then we just continue down on the G and the D string. So then we get. So now the important thing is not speed. The important thing is trying to get it clean, accurate, and an even distance in time between all the notes. Exercise 5. You have probably figured out by now that I really love doing variations of everything. So now we're going to do a variation of one of the exercises we just did, but we're going to move it going up. Use the same pattern going up in pitch instead of down in pitch. And that also makes so that the string shift will be in a fretting hand instead of the picking or the picking tapping hand. So the pattern we're going to use is also been used before. It's 5, 7, tap on 12, and then jump up to the E, 5, 7, 12. And we get this pattern. And here, that idea with lifting the finger you're having fretted when you're going to do the hammer on from nowhere on the next string really helps. Exercise 6. This will also be a variation of the same ideas that we used before. Pattern-based, almost symmetrical kind of things. But we're going to do it on more strings and we're going to go up in pitch. The pattern we're going to use is this one. But after each turn with 3 notes, do we tap on the string above? So we are on the A string, we tap on the D, tap on the G, tap on the B, and then we get this pattern. And by all means, add all the strings. Example 7 is yet another variation of the same ideas, but this time we're going to remove the triplet feel and play it with a straight feel. And we're going to do that with adding an extra note in a fretting hand. So we're going to do, and then the hammer on the new string. That pattern. 12, 7, 5, 7 on the new string. And then when we are on the B string, we do the same thing. The same thing again. Same thing again. And then we get. A really cool thing to think about at this time is that all the lines or ideas of practice exercises we've done with a triplet feel, play the triplet note pattern, but we play it with a feel of 4/4 instead of triplets. If you try to do that a little bit faster, it actually becomes a pretty cool line. For example, exercise 8 is taking the pattern from exercise 2 and reverse it so we go up in pitch instead of down. And that pattern was. So if we're going to reverse that, we do the tap, pull that off to the 5th fret, and then hammer on to the 7th fret on a string higher. And then the same thing. So we get it can take a little while to get used to hammering on from nowhere on a string above the one you're playing on, but you will get used to it. Next logical step from here would be to combine going up and down. So we're gonna take two patterns that we used before and combine them on the D and G string. So it's this pattern that we just used. And then combining that with. And then what we get is example 9, and that goes. And then if you want to, you can put that into a pattern that goes over all strings by going 2 down, 1 up, 2 down, 1 up, 2 down. And then we get something like. Example 10 would be the same kind of idea, going 3 strings down, jump up 1 and go 3 strings down from there, jump up 1 and so on. And we're going to use the pattern that we already know, this one. So then we do the E string, B string, G string. From there we jump up to B again, B, G, D. And then from there jump up to G, D, A, D, A, E. So then we get. And then we get. The next thing we're going to try is putting these ideas into an arpeggio. We're just going to use a short sequence, and I'm going to explain later on why I picked this specific one. So look at the tablature, but what we're doing is 15, tap, pull that off to the D on the 10th fret of the high E, pull that off to the 7th fret, the B on the high E. From there, do we hammer on to the 8th fret, the G note on the B string. We have. And then from there, do we tap on the 12th fret on the B string, pull that back to the 8th fret. And then from there, do we hammer on the 7th fret on the G string, the D note. And from there, hammer on the E, and that is the 6th. And then we end on the G note at the 12th fret. Sorry, then we end on the G note at the 12th fret. So what we have is. And the reason I picked this specific one is that going from the 8th fret of the B string with a hammer on from nowhere to the 7th fret on the G string can be pretty hard to get some strength into your pointing finger, or your index finger, I mean. So then that lifting your finger, the pressure from the finger you're holding down on the note, the last note played, removing the pressure there when you're doing the hammer on. I hope that's what's understandable. My English took a short vacation. Anyway, so this. And then, to be a little bit experimental, try to turn that pattern around and play it up again. So then we have 12th fret, 9, 7, hammer on 8 on the B string, 12, back to the 8th fret, hammer on the 7th fret, 10, 15, and then we have so then we maybe could somehow combine these two. Like that. The next exercise is an E minor pentatonic idea, and it's actually usable. It's a really cool way of getting really fast minor pentatonic ideas going. And to be able to do this, we got to memorize 2 different patterns, positions I should say, of the E minor pentatonic scale. So the first position we're going to use is starting from the E, the position 1, and then we get this scale. The next position would be starting on the 2nd note, on the G, and then we get a pattern that looks like this. I really recommend that you spend some time here on trying to memorize it, so you don't, when you're actually starting to do the exercise, do you not really have to think that much about the position of the notes, and rather concentrate on getting the pattern right. So for this thing, we're going to use position 2 with a tapping hand, and then we're going to use position 1 with a fretting hand, in a pattern that will always go like this. But remember, the scale is not symmetrical, so you need to follow the intervals of the scale that's written out in the tablature. So what we do, we start with the tap on the 17th fret, the A note, we pull that up to the 15th fret, and then pull that off to the 12th fret, this one. And then when we're done that, so 17, 15, 12, and then we tap on the 15th fret, pull that off to the 12th fret, and then hammer on the string below the B string. So we get, and then now we just continue the exact same pattern, just following the scale down. So we are on the B string, G, D string, and here on the last one I will do a little change of the pattern. So I will do the first 3 notes the same, but then when I tap on the 14th fret, do a slide down with my position, the position of the fretting hand, so I can get this to be able to resolve it nicely to the E note. So we get a little position shift there. So and then, if you think I'm moving too fast, just pause the video and look closely at the tablature until you can remember it decently. The whole thing put together slow is something like this. One more time slow. A little faster. Okay, that was it for this time. Next time we're gonna look into scale tapping, which is basically adding a lot of the ideas that we've done in this video into more scale sequenced stuff to make it sound less symmetrical and more variation basically. So, and until then, the only thing that will make improvement on your guitar playing is playing guitar. So practice. Cheers.